Are you as confused as I am at what this object is? Watch me make it. Hi, welcome to part 2 of Learning Blender. This is Kevin with inventimark, and today I'm going to be showing you about how to use the different perspectives and what they do and how they work basically. And the main one, you want to look up here, number 1, we have the user perspective view. To change it back and forth from perspective to orthographic view, you use the number 5. If you press that, it looks really weird because orthographic it doesn't change the size of anything. So if something's closer, it's not bigger. It doesn't matter how far it away is, it's still the same size. In perspective, if you zoom in, it stays the same size. Orthographics you can zoom in too, but when you switch back and forth, it's the same cube, it just looks completely different because it's orthographic, and it's actually quite useful, and I'll explain that how it's different. And you can see if I use a more complex object to represent the different angles and stuff. So what I'd like to do is show you a quick keyboard tip, something that I use quite frequently. It's the delete key, and on the keyboard you just press X and then click delete, and it deletes whatever object you have selected. It's really handy shortcut. I use that all the time because if you accidentally do something, just X and delete, it gets rid of it right away. Then I'm going to do Shift A to add a mesh, and I want to add the monkey. That's the main default monkey for Blender. If you remember how to move around, use the middle mouse cursor and scroll around. And I'm going to show you another trick here on how to get the object they have selected to wherever the 3D cursor is. But I'm going to show you another keyboard shortcut here, which is Shift S. So if you hold Shift and then press S, it opens up a menu, and you can move the cursor to wherever you want. So I'd like to move it back to the center of the screen. So if I click on cursor to center, it moves the 3D cursor back to the middle of the screen. And now we want to move the object to where the 3D cursor is. So if you hit Shift S again, up here it changes the object, here it changes where the cursor is. So we can click up here, which is selection to cursor, and it moves the object right to where the cursor is. And later on I can show you how that gets to be really handy with certain things, especially like circles and things like that. But let's look at the different orthographic views. If you press 5, it changes to from orthographic to perspective view. And another keyboard shortcut that I use all the time are the other numbers of the keys. If you press 1, it goes to the front perspective, and in any view you can change it from orthographic to perspective by pressing 5. So we're going to stay in perspective for now, and if you zoom in, it shows just the monkey. The perspective move, that's the front. And if you want to go to the side, it goes to the right side with the letter number 3. And you can see down here I have by the number 2. When you press 3, it moves down to the front perspective. So you can switch between those by pressing 1 or 3. And the next one is the number 7, which goes to the top view. And you can see up here where it says top perspective. So 1, and I use these all the time just to get different views. And if you go into perspective, it shows the different angles and everything. And actually I'm just going to show you a regular cube. That actually would show better. So if we hit X to delete that again, and then Shift A, just add a cube to the scene here, and then see we're orthographic in the front view. It looks like a square in all angles. If we change it to perspective, it's going to look the same too. But another key that I use all the time is the Z, which turns it into wireframe mode, where it doesn't show all the faces of the object. The faces are the different sides and everything. And with that, if we zoom around, see it's just a hollow looking cube. And with the perspective, you can see how it changes everything. So the front perspective, if it's perspective, we were looking at it and it looks not all square. It's bigger in the front and smaller in the back. So if you press 5 with orthographic, it makes it completely flat. And it's really easy to work with when it's like that, because whatever view you're in, if you're in orthographic, you can change and move around different things. You can select the different vertices and move them around really easily. And that's when you go into edit mode, you press the tab key. And when you press the tab key, it goes into this edit mode. And you can hit Z in here also, because that just toggles wireframe and regular mode. So if you're in wireframe and you go to the top view and go to perspective, you can see that we have all of these vertexes of the cube, and they're all selected. When you right click on them, just like the regular objects in the normal scene, you can select specific vertices with just the right mouse button. If you want to select more than one, you can hold down shift and just move those, and that's how you select in the edit mode. And to highlight more than one thing, you can actually press the C button, and it puts a circle on the screen. And that circle, you can regular click. If you press C again, it gets it out of the mode. But if you don't want to have a certain vertex selected, you press the middle mouse button, and that gets rid of the whatever you selected. So the regular mouse click and the middle mouse button select and deselect objects. But if we go into orthographic view, you'll see that we don't see all of the vertexes because it's in orthographic. And if I select these two with the C cursor thing, you can see if we move back to perspective, it shows that we've selected both of those. If we go back and press A actually selects all, or gets rid of all. So A is also a very common thing. So if in perspective, in order to be able to select all the same things, we would have to go around here and select all 4 of them like that. But in orthographic, you can just select those all like that. And that's how the different views work with the and how there's advantages and disadvantages to both of them. So just remember, number 5, you can switch in between them quite frequently with that. And I use that all the time to select different things. And to move around different vertexes, it's the same thing as moving around an object in the regular scene. You press the G button, and you can move that to wherever you want. To lock it in, you press the regular mouse button. If you want to accidentally move it, you just press the right mouse button, and that cancels it. But if you want to move it to a certain spot, click and drag it, and then normal click it, and that moves it. Also, if you want to move along the X, Y, or Z axis, you can also do that. In the perspective mode, you'll actually get all 3. If you move to orthographic, you won't be able to select the Z mode axis, because right now it's basically like you're working with 2D, and you won't be able to do that. So, but you still can use the X and Y and move those around. So if we press Z to go back to normal mode, not the wireframe, you can see that we move that one thing, and press tab again, and it goes out of edit mode, tab goes back into it. And say we wanted to move the whole thing like that, you can shape and deform the objects all different sorts of ways. And see here, we deformed it so much that it's not quite working right, and you gotta move it so that it does kind of conform to normal shapes, because if you look straight down, that actually, this and that axis should be connected. But there's certain things you can do to fix that, but most of the time you want to try to make it so that it's that it'll work together with the different things, because there normally should be a crease there, but right now there isn't. But I'm just moving this around and just kind of showing you how you can move stuff. You can say we screwed up, we didn't want that, we just press X and delete it. And what I'll show you next is the options down here. Whenever you create an object, there's usually parameters you can use to change the object size and dimensions and things like that. Let's go ahead and make a let's actually go to a normal perspective view and zoom out a little bit and move the cursor back to the center, which is the Shift S, and so the bottom here is the cursor. You want to go to cursor to the center. Oh, my mouse accidentally double clicked there. Cursor to center, and so we got that back there, and Shift Add, or Shift A adds, and then we add a cylinder. Then down here you have the little properties menu that you can change different things, like how many vertices this has. Right now it has 32 all the way around it. If you want to double that, you just type in 64 and it doubles it. 128 to double that. So at the higher resolution, you can even make this into a triangle by just putting 3. It goes into a triangle. 4 will make a box, and 5 the little pentagon shape, and all the way up to whatever you want. I like using at least 64 just to make it more of a smoother, rounder shape. And here you can change the size of it too. So you change how round it is with the radius, and this corresponds to half of what the object size is. Right now it's 2.16, which is half of 4.32, so that's the radius, not the diameter, so it's half of whatever you want it to be. And the depth is the height. This is basically the Z over here, and that shows how high you want the object to go. But if you accidentally move this object around, see, I moved it and I right clicked and canceled, but if you move it and regular click, all the properties menus go away. So you can only use that when you first create an object. So you got to keep that in mind whenever you create something. And if you screwed up, if you press X and then Shift A and then add the cylinder back in there, it will remember what you last did for the last time you created an object. And that does come in handy, so that if you screw up or you make something and you didn't mean to do that, you can just make the object again and redo that. And every little thing has its own little properties menu. Like say you do cone, same with the cylinder, it has the vertices, and the radius 1, you can have whatever size you want there. And you can actually make it cut off like that, kind of like a cylinder that's moved in, and the height as well. And the cube, I'd actually never really used that. For the cube, it's just basically the size. It's the radius of the cube, so basically it does half of whatever the length of each side would be. And there's two different types of spheres. There's a UV sphere and the icosphere. I'll get more into depth on this later on, but there's two different types. But the UV sphere is made so that it's easy for texturing the object. The icosphere is just very it's all over if you look around it, and you can see that there's everything's balanced well, unlike the UV sphere. And just like that, with the I'll move these out of the way, but the UV sphere, you can actually do subdivisions, which means that every triangle that it has that you see on there, see it's only got one, and that's what it starts out with. Actually, it starts out with two usually, but so for every one triangle there was, it divides that by two, and so on. So it subdivides it, and you can actually make a really smooth ball with that. So that's what that one looks like compared to the other one. Let's create a UV sphere. You can do the same with this one, except this is more like the cylinder. You can make more vertices around that side, and for the rings you can do the same thing. And it also makes a pretty smooth ball when you get a higher resolution, but the icosphere to me always seems to look better. It's just more of a symmetrical object than the UV sphere is. Same thing, you can change the size with that too. And remember to delete, just press X and right click on each object to delete them. And then there's some fun objects like the Torus, little donut shaped thing. This thing you can do all kinds of stuff with. You can make more that way, more that way. You can change how big the main diameter is, and you can make the ring rounder. Make it look like a inner tube or something like that. But there's all sorts of different things you can do with the menu down there, and each one of these has its own special properties. I'll get more into all these other functions later on. But that's the main objects and how they work. And I'm going to show you one more thing before I go, and then I'll continue on with the next video. Let's go ahead and make a regular cube, and let's change that back down to the normal size, 2 by 2 by 2. You can just, if you want to change it, you can put 10, make that 20. But let's go ahead and just put 2 by 2 by 2. And let's go back into edit mode by pressing tab. And what I want to show you here is how to add on to the object. Once you've created the object, you can select all of them, and what happens is the face of the object highlights, and that means that that face is selected. And to make the object bigger with that, or to make an added section to it, what you want to press is E, and that extrudes part of the object. And that after you press E, you can move the mouse cursor to wherever you want. And if you didn't want to do that, you press Control Z, and that undoes it, or undoes it. But if you press E and then press the right mouse button on accident, what will happen is you'll actually have all of these different vertices will have doubles in them, because you actually do have the object there. And so you want to press Control Z to undo that. Another cool thing is you can press E, then press S to size it. S sizes different things, and it also works with in the main object. See, we can press S and make this a bigger size or smaller just by doing that. If you want to make it 2 times, you press S, then press 2 on the keypad. It makes it twice the size, and it works pretty much like that all the time. But anyway, so I just extracted it, pressed the right mouse button so it didn't do anything, and then I pressed S to size it, and it sized it staying on this same plane as the X and Y axis, and then it moved it down, and then if you press E, you can extrude from that up, or you can actually go down. And so if you press Z, it shows the inside of the object, and G, you can grab it. You can actually make a hollow item. So the object, we had just made a hole in it just like that using the extrude. Actually, you can extrude inside too as well, and that's what we just did to make this. Comes in handy for all kinds of different things. And in the next episode, I think I'm going to show how to turn a basic cylinder into like a glass or any type of item like that. But for now, that's pretty much all I got for episode 2. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like if you liked the video. If not, then thumbs it down. Anyway, thanks. This is Kevin with inventimark, signing out.